Well, I got a call from the chief pilot the other day.
Call from the chief pilot. Are you in trouble?
Well, that's what I said. I said, what happened? Somebody complained. He goes, apparently I was rude to a flight attendant.
So you are in trouble. Well, maybe not in trouble. Do you ever get, whenever the chief pilot's on the phone, you're like scared. You're like, what did I do? It's never a good call.
Right. No. You know what I thought he was going to say? What's this about a podcast I hear? No. But he said, I understand I got a call, a complaint that you were rude to a flight attendant. I said, just one? He goes, no, actually two.
You already knew where this was going?
Well.
Are you known for being rude to flight attendants?
No, but I'm trying harder. No, there's a very bad trend that keeps happening. I've noticed where flight attendants are going above my head as the captain of the airplane, and they're calling maintenance on me for things that are broken.
No.
Yeah. So I'll show up to the airplane and maintenance is already there. And I'm like, why are you here? Well, we got a call about this. Well, I don't know anything about this. Who called? Flight attendants called. Or the flight attendants are going to their supervisor and their supervisor's calling. So this happened. And I guess I was rude to the flight attendant and justifiably so. So I said to the guy, this is what happened and this is why. And I'm glad you called because this needs to stop. Actually, in this instance, I had called maintenance for something else. And I was on the phone with them when she came up to tell me about something broken, but I couldn't talk to her because I was on the phone. So rather than waiting for me, she just went her own route. And I don't know how she did it, but next thing you know, I get out of the flight deck, I get off the phone, and here's maintenance fixing something else that I had no idea about. So I gave her a little what for. And
well, you're a flight attendant. You live this.
Never, ever. I would say captain, pilot, first officer, whoever, not me, the flight attendant, go up the chain of command. Yeah.
Command. Okay. So, but they're on the plane first, right? Now I just want to break this down for
sometimes
folks at home.
Sometimes.
Okay. Or you're getting on together, but everyone's doing their pre-flight checks and duties and getting things ready, right? Organized.
Yeah.
So they just decide, or who decided? Was it like a lead flight attendant, or was it
there
like a
is
regular?
Yeah. So the flight attendants have a hierarchy too, and one of the flight attendants is designated as the lead flight attendant. Or sometimes they're called the purser. I don't know what other airlines call it, but yeah, they're the one that all the other flight attendants take their problems to, and then they bring it to the pilots.
Okay.
And that's how it's supposed to work.
Supposed
to. In this case, and this keeps happening. It's happened a number of times, and so I said, this has to stop. And chief pilot, he's on the phone with me. And as soon as I started, he just kind of started laughing. Like he kind of knew that this was a stupid conversation. I told somebody I would call you, so I've called you.
Maybe he's dealt with this a few times and this is just another rash of the problem.
He probably has, because the only other time he called me, once before, I was getting on a plane. I got to the plane right at we have a designated show time which in our case, 45 minutes before departure, we're required to be there. So we got there right on time we get there, and they had already boarded everybody on the plane. Well, they only had 50 people. So now these 50 people are going to sit there for 45 minutes while we get through our flight checks and do all of our pre-flight stuff. In this case, I had a broken item. Call it an MEL item, which is minimum equipment list, which is a list of things that can be broken and you can still fly. But there's oftentimes a whole litany of things that you have to do, checks that you have to go through. And this one was pretty extensive. So it took me like 30 minutes, 20 minutes or something way longer than normal. So I got to spend my entire first 20 minutes going over this MEL. Meanwhile, there's 50 people sitting on the airplane, except for the 3 people sitting in wheelchairs that were just sitting in the jetway that nobody was attending to. And so when the gate agent come down to me and he's like, we're going to be ready to go early, right, Captain? I said, no, we're not going to be ready to go early. I got all this crap to deal with. I got this 50 people. Why did you board so early? You didn't need to board 50 people. And
I was going to wonder
you left these other people sitting in the jet bridge with no. So I may have been rude to this gate agent as well. It's entirely possible.
Did they really approach you asking if you were going to board early in the midst of all this craziness?
No, they had already boarded. He wanted to push. He was ready to go. He's like, let's get out on time, Captain. Guess what?
Guess what? You're muted.
Yeah, I had to cough. I was almost dying there.
Nice.
We ended up pushing back 1 minute late. Reason being, we had to, they close the aircraft door, they pull the jet bridge away. We call the tower. Are we clear to push? He says, hold for traffic in the alley. Okay, we hold for traffic in the alley. We push back 1 minute late as a result of this. I got a call that night from the chief pilot, same guy.
After all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And that was that 1 extra minute was a call's worth?
The gate agent told me that you pushed back late on purpose just to spite him. Yeah, really?
That sounds like drama. That doesn't sound like functional anything.
That doesn't sound like something I would do, but you know what? Next time, I think I will. Now that that's an option I know about, yeah. When I code the late push, it's going to be spite.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, nobody's ever done anything spiteful in the workplace before. You'd be the first.
No. Hey, but you know what? Before we forget, my name is MC Howe. This is Cats on Guard. Welcome.
Co-captain Richard Million here.
And today's topic is all about the dreaded chief pilot. And why is he dreaded? Or she?
Okay, so he or she is dreaded because, in my experience, I've rarely gotten contacted by my supervisor, my chief pilot, for anything good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that could change, like industry-wide, or even not even industry-wide, but just like overall, like in all of the workplace in the world. Like, let's make the supervisor contact you once in a while with something positive so that you're not like, damn it, an email from my boss, right?
The chief pilot has a very reputation industry-wide as being that person that you don't ever want to have to deal with. Because if they're calling you, there's a reason something went wrong. Although I will say in this instance, and this same guy that called me these 2 times, every year on my birthday, I get a happy birthday text. Yes. And I always think to myself, it's just some generic bot that he set up for every pilot. And I don't respond to it because, well, I needed him one day. And I called him on the phone because there was an issue. And he picked up the phone. And the first thing he said is, MC, what's up? I was like, oh, my God, you really do know who we are. You really are sending those birthday texts, aren't you? Oh, my God, I felt so bad. So the following year when he sent me my birthday text, I responded and he didn't answer back to my response.
Of course, yeah. Yep. Well, it's if the text says happy birthday, like you already know it's not negative.
That's true.
The majority of contact, I feel like I don't know if I could ever do that job. The amount of clerical,
I could never do it.
Conflict resolution.
It never ends.
Constantly putting out fires. That's all they do. It just sounds
it's
like
a 24-hour, 365 job. Never. The phone never stops ringing. And you know what else too? They got to know stuff. These chief pilots, they got to know all the airline operations. They got to know all the FARs. They got to know the pilot contracts for when, if you think it's been violated and you call to complain, this guy is going to be like, well, actually, yeah, I don't want to know stuff. I know more than I want to know. I want to forget stuff. So the chief pilot is normally the person you don't want knowing your name. You know what I mean?
Well, like I've had, I don't know, let's say 6 chief pilots, I think, over the course of my career that I've like dealt with knowledgeably. And I don't remember a positive interaction with one.
Not a single time.
It's always been, hey, we heard this. What do you know about it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, I'm getting dragged into something, right? Or you did this and we don't like it. And we need you to explain yourself. I call it the carpet dance. Now I have to justify my actions to somebody who wasn't out there doing it.
You got to stand figuratively, but also sometimes literally stand before them in their office and just explain yourself. What an embarrassment. We're grown-ups, right?
What have you had to explain to your chief pilots? I've got a long list of them, but I don't think I can fit it all in an episode.
Well, without outing myself, I'm going to tell a story. This is my first foray into the world of airline aviation, which we call 121, the 121 world, which is what regulates your airliners, your majors, your legacy carriers, your regional jets. So I get a job at this regional airline, and I'm in their first week of training. They throw everybody into a classroom setting, and they're just kind of teaching you how the airline works. And inevitably, they bring in the chief pilot to give a talk to the group.
Like
And
like a briefing, like a meeting room, or is this like an office?
it's like a classroom.
Okay.
It's literally a classroom with desks and a chalkboard and a teacher.
Okay.
So it's, 50 new hires sitting in their classroom desks, and the chief pilot comes in to give the welcome to the airline chief pilot talk. Well, here's the thing. The day before he gave that talk, the union came in to give a talk about welcome to the union. And I, paying no attention to the union guy as he's giving his talk, what he was wearing, which was very specific. There was a push at this time to kind of bust the union, and then the union was fighting back. Anyway, the union guy who gave this talk had one of these shirts on that they had made up that was kind of had a negative message to it. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay.
So you're talking about some sort of like labor versus management battle was happening, but you're brand new at the company, so
I don't
you're not like
know anything
invested in
about
it.
this.
Yeah.
I don't know it. This all happened before my days, but he's wearing this shirt. So at the end of class that day, there were like 8 or 10 of us standing around waiting for the hotel van to come and pick us up. And this guy I've never seen before, he comes up to us and he's all huffing and puffing. He goes, "You guys," he points at us all, "inside now." Oh my God, what the hell? So we all dutifully follow this guy, and we go back up to the classroom, and he's up in this classroom, and he's pacing back and forth with his arms behind his back, and he's looking at the floor, and he's kind of breathing heavy. And in the corner of the room is this union guy that had given this talk earlier in the day, looking kind of sheepish, looking kind of like the dog that got caught with his hands in the cookie jar. And this guy that called us in there, "So I don't know, something happened today, and that is not the way we do things here. And I just want to set things straight and let you know." And this, well, it turns out this is the chief pilot of the airline, who had gotten a call from somebody complaining about this message on the union guy's shirt. And so his role here today was to angrily address that and humiliate the union guy and force him to do this unbelievable, humiliating apology that went on for like 45 minutes. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend anybody. I only wore the shirt because it was a union shirt and I didn't know that I was going to offend." And this went on, I swear, literally for 45 minutes. And this chief pilot is just like glaring at this guy, and he's glaring at us, the new hires. But here's the thing. There were only like 10 of us that day because everybody else had gone to their various hotels or homes where they lived. So as it turned out, this was the dress rehearsal. The next day, the whole group of 50 us are back in class, and he did it again. He made this guy stand there, humiliating him in front of this group again.
This is a anti-union tactic, right? Is that like?
Yes, I would say it was that, but I took it as, this chief pilot is the scariest person in my universe right now, and I have just been thrown into this world that I don't know how to navigate because, oh my God, what if I somehow come afoul of this man? What is going to happen?
Sounds like that chief pilot did exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is
He
making sure
was.
that you are afraid of them.
He was the epitome of the chief pilot. I will say this.
Hmm.
And
That's too bad.
so,
It could be different if they wanted
yeah,
it to be, but they
yeah,
don't.
it could be different. Well, here's the thing. It got worse for me because I get all the way through the training, all the way through the ground school portion of it. And I'm just amazed that I've made it without being sent home as a failure. The whole time you're there, you're sitting there waiting for somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, the jig is up. You're on the next plane home. Well, that didn't happen. And I was pretty happy about that. And then I got a call, and it was that chief pilot. He called me up and he said to me, are you aware of the situation with your former employer? I said, no. What situation? I don't, what? No, what? So the guy that I worked for just previous had asked me to stay a year. And I worked for him as a contract employer. I wasn't even employed by him. I was like 1099 kind of, land. When he hired me, he said, we'd like you to stay for a year. Oh, okay. Well, what if I leave early? Well, we can't make you stay, but if you do, we will make your life miserable. I thought he was joking. He presented it as a joke. 4 months later, when I got the opportunity to go work for the airline, I found out the joke was not a joke. So there was this rule back then that has only recently changed. Everyone you've ever worked for has to send all your training records to your next employer per the FAA. That's a rule. It was a law. They had 30 days from the time they request it to send them over. Well, this guy refused to do it. He just flat out refused. He claimed that I had owed him thousands and thousands of dollars in training money, and that I violated a contract. And when he gets his money from me, they'll get my training records. So now, all these years later, I realize this was an HR thing. I should have never been involved in this. The chief pilot should have never been involved in this. HR should have taken care of this all the way.
But they put it on your shoulders so they don't have to do anything. They made it seem like
Yeah.
it's your problem.
So this chief pilot, he's like, you've got to, and he talked like this too. You've got to take care of this issue, and until you do, we cannot issue you a flight ID, an airline ID, and we now must pause your training. So I'm like, oh my god, what can I do? So I couldn't.
Was your chief pilot the Batman?
He was the Godfather, because at one point I ended up in his office and he was sitting at his desk with two henchmen standing behind him. Yeah.
Making you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Right. So, that was unbelievable. I eventually ended up calling Oklahoma City, where the FAA is headquartered. And I spoke to the guy in charge of this Records Act. And I told him what was going down. And the very next day it was straightened out, but I shouldn't have had to deal with that. But also, I didn't want to step on the chief pilot's toes and say, this isn't for me to deal with. Because
my problem.
But you're brand
it is if
new.
you want to work here.
You're just happy to have the job. You don't want to do anything. So, yeah. As a side note, years later, I was down on I was flying on a jump seat of a major carrier that had two jump seats in the back. And there was a guy so there were four of us. There were two jump seaters and the two regular pilots. I ended up talking to the guy on the other jump seat. He ended up working for this guy's brother, the one that I had previously worked for. He had an identical story to tell. So that is going to be told in the Worst Employers Ever episode, which is also upcoming. But
So what I'm gathering here, and this is, I don't know what year range was your story from?
2003, 2004.
Okay. So there are different waves. Aviation professional hiring goes in waves, like big waves.
Yeah.
There's like gangbusters hiring. If you have a pulse and a pilot's license, you're hired. And then there's other times when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get a job. There's an 8-month wait to get on with somebody if you're qualified, and the requirements go higher and higher. And then the roller coaster will go the other way. And then suddenly everyone that got hired at that like plan B job bails to go to their plan A because hiring's picked back up. And that plan B job is panicking to get people in the door because the people are leaving so fast. It's just this roller coaster. And listening to you talk about your job, like, I really need this job and I can't screw up. And oh my God. And then there, I don't know if you've been on the internet the last few years, They were like, I have job offers from 4
Oh, for
jobs, and I'm not
sure.
quite sure who I want to go to. The one's going to make me fly in like 2 days early, and I don't want to waste so much time because I want to be on the beach.
Yeah.
So I really just want to come in like the morning of and just get my pilot's license and walk into my job. And their bonus isn't good enough. Their sign-on
Oh
bonus,
my God, the
their
complaining.
$100,000 sign-on bonus. Can you
Mm-hmm.
believe this shit? I'm sorry. Excuse me. Scratch that.
My
Your mother's
lovely
going to be
and
very
wonderful
upset.
mother-in-law is not going to, she's going to stop listening. Thank you very much.
I'm allowed to talk that way about people getting $100,000 signing bonuses from multiple offered jobs.
All right, let me put it this way to you. They offer you a $100,000 signing bonus to become the chief pilot.
No.
No,
Nope.
no,
You'd
no
have to
money in the
double my
world, right?
salary. You'd
Yeah.
have to double my salary and then throw an additional, like a guaranteed, I don't know, 35 weekends off where my phone won't ring.
So who are the people that are taking these jobs? Why do they want them? What is it?
My
What's the
opinion
incentive?
is people that like control.
Yeah, it's people that
People
don't
that
want to fly.
micromanagers, you get to control your schedule. You get to say, sorry, I can't fly because I got to be in this meeting or that meeting. Or I have to interview some people about some story that I got to report about. And so you get to control what you do by micromanaging, microcontrolling.
What kind of things are they micromanaging?
Well, the report says that you pushed back at this minute, and our
Mm-hmm.
manual says that's 28 minutes prior to takeoff. Like, just using the manual, like, which is a rigid document against a fluid situation, but being a position of authority to assess that and tell you what you did wrong. It's kind of like a boy. I don't know. I want to bash the Boy Scouts. They're good people, but like hall monitors.
Yeah, they are like hall monitors. You were running too fast in the hall.
Yes,
Your
like, but
uniforms,
I
your
was late and I
pants aren't the
wanted to
right
be on
color.
time. I was running because I wanted to be on time for you, sir. Well, running is against company policy. Well, if I was late, you would still be calling me. Well, yeah, but if you were late but you were safe, and then like it doesn't matter what you do, you'll never please that person, right?
That's right.
It's
No.
so sad. Like, and I want to respect them because they're technically our bosses, right? They are our boss. They're our next layer up the chain of command. But like a captain makes a decision, this is the captain's decision. Like you don't get to second guess. You can second guess me all you want, but like there's
After the fact.
after that you can Monday morning quarterback,
Yeah.
but you weren't there.
And you know what? They're not there. And I get these emails every so these updates, operational update, and they list all these statistics like on time performance and load factors, like how many tickets did we sell, and it's like, and as a pilot, I don't care about any of these things. The very last thing that I will ever care about is whether we pushed out on time. I do not care. I will never care. And I will
It matters to the statistics of
it
the
matters to their
shareholders.
shareholders. It my job, your job, our job, fly the airplane safely.
100%.
Get it from A to B without breaking anything or anyone. However long it takes us to do that, don't care. Call me all day long. Yeah, I pushed a minute late. Yeah, I did it despite that gate agent. Yup, but we got there safely.
So one thing, gosh, it was one of the worst times in my career. I was interacting with a chief pilot that was very, very militaristic about his job, and that whatever he did was to benefit the airline. No matter what, we must protect this airline at all costs. And if that means that your little incident will take the hit for the bigger cause, like the fall on your sword, I don't know, was the Japanese would like push the sword through their stomach if they brought shame, right? Like you'll do that because better than the airline ever saying that there was anything systemic wrong with the airline. We'll never say that, right? So
Right.
he used to call people in, and before you get something bad put on your record, your employee file or whatever happened, whatever screw up. Like nowadays, the culture's so much better, and that was just a bad chief pilot. But he was an officer in the military, and he carried that like fall on your sword mentality to his civilian job. And for those of us who weren't in the military, we're like, dude, I'm not going to salute you in the hallway. This isn't the military anymore. I just work here, bro. Like, you know. so, so he used to have his you picture like a businessman at a desk, right, in a big office, and he'd have the airline's certificate, like the actual license the FAA gives the airline. It had it like in a plaque on the wall behind his desk, and he'd always kind of lean back in his chair and pick his hand up and point his finger and, we have to protect the certificate. It's like the flag on the top of the fort for him.
For sure.
And I was, well, I'm not going to throw my career away so you can protect the certificate. If you guys did something stupid, I'm not going to say it was on me. I refuse. There was a big deal with a broken plane, and I was like refusing to fly it. Then they kind of fixed it. It was half-ass fixed, and I flew it because the documents were right, and they said they fixed it, but it was very obvious they didn't fix it. And then I wrote it up again, and it made them look bad because it looked like they weren't doing their job. Oh, wait, they weren't doing their job. They were just making the documents look like the job was done so that the business would continue and, planes would move. But I was getting subjected to this dangerous flying, and I said, I'm just not going to tolerate it. Well, then they basically spun it back on me, say I chose to fly a broken airplane. And it's like an unairworthy, illegally functioning airplane. I said, no, I've actually told you multiple times that this is broken, and you keep telling me that it's fixed, and the documents keep saying it's fixed, and I'm done flying this plane. And so I went to the FAA. Captain Million has elected to continue flying this broken airplane and has violated. Oh yeah. And I went in the office fuming, and he's leaned back in his chair, point at the stupid plaque on the wall. Remember, we have to protect the certificate. It's not at the cost of my career.
What about your certificate? Yeah.
He doesn't. No, they don't give a damn about your certificate. Remember, hall monitor. Right. You were breaking the rules. Like, no, I wasn't.
Just one.
You made me break.
You're easily replaceable. Yeah,
I am. Yeah, we're just another motor in the machine.
That's right.
And if the motor goes, you get another. So I don't know what you all do at home for work. I knew a few people I've told this to, and this is kind of based on my chief pilot experiences. If you die, your job posting will be listed before your obituary. There's no reason to be insanely loyal to an employer. Like, if you like them, that's great. Don't miss your kid's birthday for them. Don't miss your daughter's ballet concert for them. If you go away tomorrow, nobody at your work is going to cry about your departure. I've known people that I've worked with that I really do think that I think that they think there's going to be a banner on the wall honoring them when they leave. And you know what happens when those people leave? Nothing.
They replace them.
Tomorrow, business goes on.
Yep.
Bob still goes to the coffee machine at 8:30, and Bill still gets his vending machine snacks at noon instead of going to lunch. They don't care. Nobody.
Because life goes on.
But they have you convinced. Your management has you convinced that you're an integral part of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, the family. Until you have a medical issue or have a problem with them, or they do something that requires you to sue them, and you see how much family you are.
I had a lady I worked for once that she told me that story. I was trying to negotiate a raise, and if not, I was going to leave. Oh, we've got big plans for you, very big plans for this place, and you are an integral part of those. Okay. Well, what are they? Oh, I can't tell you. So I never knew.
You can't leave, and you can't get a raise either.
I did leave, and I got a raise where I went, and they're out of business. So how do you like that?
You did the right thing. Like, I don't think that. I'm not to shit on your end of that thing, but even if they did give you a raise, they were going to go under anyway. Like, you weren't the integral part that, even though they told you that. Like,
oh my God, if I'm anybody's integral part, you're already going under. Come on.
It's hilarious. Yeah, never make me an integral part of the puzzle here. Oh my gosh. But this is the typical, I don't know if you want to call it labor versus management, but it's like the chief pilot stereotype is that kind of gaslighting that goes on. You're a great, great pilot, and we really, really appreciate what you do here. And pause. Okay. If I wasn't here tomorrow, who would you say that to? The next person getting in the airplane? It doesn't matter who's getting in the airplane. They just, okay. And it sucks because we put a lot of effort into our pilot's license and our safety and our reputation as pilots as a career, but we are just another required chess piece to make their chess game move.
Aren't we included in the empty weight of the aircraft or something like that?
Yeah, we're just part of the
calculate the weight and balance. Yeah,
two pilots and bags.
We're already calculated. It doesn't matter which of us is sitting there. The numbers exist, and it's not assigned to an individual. So
that is hilarious that you mentioned that. It's a generic weight too. You could be a 300 pounder or 110 pounds. They don't care. You're just a piece of the meat. Like you're a
yep,
piece of meat that moves the machine.
yep,
That's why I like little airplanes, because that's personalized service.
I get that. Well,
hey, so let me hear how many. I got to tell you this one, Chief Pilot. I got one back. Like I won.
oh,
Big time.
yeah,
There was, it wasn't big time. It was actually very small time in the grand scheme of things. It was about an $80 charge on a company card. So it was big time for me, little time for the company. But the Chief
sure.
Pilot and I were going to lock horns. I took the FO to a
Your
sushi.
FO.
I don't own the FOs.
Okay.
It's the FO.
I'll change that for you one day.
It's one day, but we'll just keep digging each other back and forth about it. So the FO and I go out. We were at we finished dropping off cargo. We're hungry, so we're gonna get some food. And the crew meals are approved on the company card. During a duty day, you can feed yourself a meal. Usually we order DoorDash, get Pizza Hut, I don't know, something. But today we went off in a crew car from the FBO, and we went to a sushi place. And it was like a buffet where you just keep clicking the pictures of the sushi on the iPad. It was super cool. So you click the picture, and it would like zap that order over to the bar, and they would start cooking it. So you just keep clicking on what you liked based on looking at pictures of it. And we
That
ordered
could
a
get
ton of
very
food.
expensive.
No, it was 40. It was like 35
You just
bucks
keep
a head.
clicking pictures. You don't realize that it's
But it's
actually
all in
being
one price. It's a buffet.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Yeah. It was all you can eat.
I
35
love
bucks
an
a
all
head.
you can eat. Yeah.
You're just like, I want chicken teriyaki, click. I want a California roll, click. I want miso soup, click.
So
And we
you
just
did
clicked.
this to a tune of $80.
Yeah. Canadian too. So it was even less in American.
Yeah.
Well, I get back to the like we finish the trip, and like a week later the expense goes through the expensing app, and the expense app flags it because it says sushi.
You're
In
not
the
allowed to eat
title of
sushi?
Well, that was my question. It's a type of food. In
Yeah.
fact, it's a good food. It's better than McDonald's. So I get an email from the chief pilot. Lavish crew meal in the title.
Lavish.
Lavish.
Sushi. They don't even cook it. How could it be
We're
lavish?
pilots. What do you want me to eat McDonald's all day long in the terminal? It's not lavish. Anyway, that's my opinion. And his opinion was that it was lavish, and it's probably because the expense app was told to look for lavish words like,
So
fancy things.
you don't just submit a receipt that says lunch. It actually breaks it down into sushi.
Well, the credit card is tied to an expensing app, and the credit card transaction gets loaded first. So the title, so say you used Uber and you paid with the card, the charge on the expense app would say Uber, and then you would have to click and say this was a taxi limousine service from airport to hotel. Well, it came up sushi place. The word sushi was in there, and then I had to label it individual meals or crew meals. And then somebody in the auditing side of things that doesn't work for an airline was like, whoa, we're not paying for sushi. We don't do sushi. That's expensive food. And to be honest with you, it's not anymore. Sushi is not much more expensive than a good, healthy, hearty meal from somewhere that's not junk food. Junk food is always cheap, right? That's a big problem for us with $18 salads and $12 Big Macs. You're going to go for the Big Mac. So
Sure.
anyway,
I want a Big Mac.
I had my first Big Mac this year.
What?
Yeah, I went a whole lifetime without it.
Aren't you almost 40 years old?
Almost. So listen,
This
sushi gets kicked back, right? You're gonna
I'm
have
not
to pay
going to
for
let
this
this
out of
go.
pocket. All right, fine. things I shouldn't have done, right?
Things you should have done. Go on with your sushi.
So the manuals at the airline, we have a general operating manual, we have a maintenance manual, we have a fatigue risk management program that
For
has
sure.
a manual, and we have a pilot operating handbook, which goes over like pilot work rules and things like hotels will not exceed this price unless it's approved by, and crew meals are to consist of. Well, the chief pilot sent me a link, like a hyperlink, tied to the pilot handbook policy stating that the crew or the company will furnish a meal to the crew on a duty day to consist of deli sandwich, pizza,
That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it is. It's the meal policy.
Yeah.
or equivalent restaurant visit if you leave the airport for it. Um, and that was what he said. He's just going to a sushi restaurant is not pizza or a Subway sandwich. So I said, well, out of principle, I got to fight this because they just made this huge push about making sure we care for ourselves with nutrition, and it's not good for fatigue and health if you're eating junk food all the time. And Pizza Hut is junk food. There's nothing healthy at Pizza Hut, period. It's pizza and dessert, wings, either way. I go to the fatigue manual and I peel through the fatigue manual about maintaining health and energy and proper body nutrition. And it says pilots will, when if at all possible, maintain a diet consisting of whole grains, meats, vegetables, fruits, and such. Right, like
So the
rice,
fatigue
fish,
manual
meat.
is telling you what kind of food to eat.
It is if I want to not be fatigued while I work. But the other manual is saying the only thing the company will furnish us with is junk food.
Yeah.
So I
Interesting.
took the fatigue manual excerpt and I hyperlinked it and I replied right back to him.
Oh, you got him.
So he got the per pilot handbook 3.2.1 company will furnish sandwiches and pizza. And I went per fatigue manual, also signed by the pilot handbook's not signed by the FAA. It's not a regulating document. Our fatigue manual is an FAA governed document with
I
the
wonder
FAA
which one
signature on
takes
it.
precedent.
So when I hyperlinked 5.4.3, as cited by our FAA regulated and approved manual fatigue risk management program, page 5.4.3, we were following proper protocol while selecting nutritious, wholesome foods. Oh, God. I mean, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall and watch him read that email from that desk with his stupid picture behind him.
Oh, you're the guy, you're the troublemaker because you're the guy that knows where to find these things to correct the error that your chief pilot has made. And I appreciate it when you're sitting next to me, boy.
I have the manuals. I'm like
Yeah.
Rain Man
Well,
with my
we
manuals,
all
but
we all have the manuals. They just don't live in our heads. You know, it's a that's a different story. It reminds me of a time, if I may.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
I was doing a flight. Picture it now. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Okay. Everybody, it's
Chaos in the airport.
Sunday night after Thanksgiving. Everybody's going home. It is chaos in the airport. There is not a square foot to stand on. Forget about finding a seat to sit on if you need to sit for any reason. I get on the aircraft and there's a maintenance man on board. Says, plane's down. There's an issue. One of the cabin doors has been indicating that it is disarmed in flight, meaning to arm the door means that you set it so that if you have to do an evacuation, you pull a handle and an escape slide will blow out and you can jump on the slide and get away from the airplane.
So the slide is what's armed or not. That's the armed.
The slide
Okay.
is what's armed or not, and we arm the doors prior to takeoff and disarm them.
That's what the PA does, right? When the plane stops,
Yep.
everybody at home's like,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, sometimes it's some disarm and all call or something like that."
Yep.
What does that
That's what
mean?
it is. What that means is every flight attendant is assigned a door to arm and disarm at the appropriate time. And you want to call the lead flight attendant to let them know all the doors have been either armed or disarmed. They do this before every flight. So yeah, passengers hear this. All call, disarm doors, whatever. So there's a door on this particular airplane that has been indicating it is disarmed in flight, which is the opposite of what you want. So they've been trying to fix this for a while. They've changed out sensors, they've flown it, and it's still given this issue, and they can't figure it out. So they decide the only way that they can figure this out is with the maintenance man is going to pressurize the airplane while at the gate. So they're going to turn on the motors, close all the doors, simulate being in flight, and see if they can recreate the problem. The only problem, he says, is that I'm all by myself. We're short staffed and I can't do this procedure by myself because somebody needs to be in the flight deck, running the engines and monitoring the systems, and somebody has to be back at the door fiddling with it. And I said, well, you know what? There is nobody there. There is no way I'm going back into that terminal right now with all those crazy Thanksgiving traveling people. So I'm going to be on this airplane while you do this procedure. If you need me to go fiddle at the door or sit here, I can help out. And as a crew, we all decided to stay on the airplane during this procedure. That's mistake number one. So we all, pilots and flight attendants, all on this airplane. This whole procedure, from the time we close the doors, turn on the motors, run through the whole thing, it takes about an hour. And so we're just sitting there. It's kind of a slow burn. We're sitting there in the flight deck, and we look down at our cabin pressure altitude. So the cabin is pressurized in flight so that, when we're cruising along at 35,000 feet and there's no air outside to breathe, we're able to still breathe comfortably inside. And they're normally pressurized to an altitude of about 7,000, 8,000 feet when we're cruising around, right?
Yeah.
Comfortable. Well, we're at the gate, so we're not even at 35,000 feet, but we're supposedly simulating this. So we look down at this gauge, expecting to see 7,000, 8,000 feet.
-3.
Oh, -3? Like 3 feet below sea level?
No, -3,000.
-4,400.
Yeah, you're a scuba diver.
That's exactly what we said to each other. Oh my God. And we looked at each other and we're like, what is going on? And the maintenance man, he just kind of giggled. He goes, yeah, that's just where the gauge stops. It's way below that.
My gosh. Seriously?
Yeah. So we're like, are you kidding me? So yeah.
You're at like the Earth's magma depth of depth.
Are we? So sidebar here. For people that scuba dive, your body goes through these changes with the pressure underneath the ocean. And when you scuba, you have to stop as you ascend back to the surface. And that's when you see these people plugging their nose and blowing. And what they're doing is they're equalizing the pressure. Because if you don't do that, it can cause some very serious damage, not only to your ears and your other organs, but if you go fly an airplane after scuba diving, you can do some serious damage to your body. And I don't know all the biological stuff. Maybe you can chime in here with this, but I do know that they recommend that you wait 24 hours before scuba diving or after scuba diving before you fly.
Correct. And it's because you're going to go negative pressure to positive pressure. There's nitrogen bubbles in your blood. You get the bends. But hey, finish your story, and then I want to go into the pressurizing a little bit.
Okay, so we're looking at each other. Are we scuba diving at this point? And we finish this procedure. Now we're going to go flying in an hour. What's going to happen to us? We didn't know. I didn't know. We just kind of looked at each other. I don't know. Well, what should we do? We need to find somebody that has an answer to this question because I am not comfortable flying this airplane until I know whether we can fly this airplane. So who do we call? Well, oh, I know, the union. They have an aeromedical department. Let's call them. So I called them. Of course, it's Sunday night, holiday weekend. No answer. Great. Hey, you know what? I just got my medical last week. Every time I walk out of that guy's office, he says, anytime you need me, call me 24/7, 365. Yeah, he didn't answer either. So
I have to say, it's part of the script for him.
I'm really stumped. So I'm thinking next thing that we did, we better call the chief pilot and explain the situation to him. So we call the chief pilot, and now I'm at a pretty big operation. We've got a lot of different chief pilots of a lot of different things, and at different various times, there's some of them are home sleeping, some of them are. So there's a chief pilot on duty phone number. I call this. I don't know who's going to answer. And I don't even know who any of our chief pilots are, to be honest. There's too damn many of them. So guy answers the phone, and this guy, his name is Thor Thunderbolt, okay? Which is the dumbest name that you've ever heard in the history of life. Such a dumb name that I refuse to say it except in full. So Thor Thunderbolt answers the phone, and I explain, and right away I can tell he's at a party because I can hear it going in the back. There's glasses clinking and people laughing, and he's giving me half his attention, and I explain the situation to him. He says, oh, yeah, that's no big deal. I just read an article about this exact same thing. Yeah, you're fine. Go fly.
Of course, that's easy to say, but no, that's him not wanting to pay attention to you.
But wait a minute. This is a very specific thing that you just read an article about. What? Can you cite that? No, of course he can't, because he's lying. He just wants to get the plane up in the air and get this
It could
flight
cost
off
you
and
your
operate.
career to send you out flying like this.
100%. My life, it could. Who knows what's going to happen? So I'm not feeling the happies at the conclusion of this phone call with Thor Thunderbolt. And so,
You ever heard of HUCB?
HUCB.
Hang up,
What,
call back. Try to get somebody else. It's a call center thing.
perhaps. Well, we finished the procedure. The gate agent comes down, wants to, still never figured out why the door wasn't, behaving. But the gate agent's ready to board up. And I said, I need an answer to this question, and I don't know the answer. I don't know who to get the answer from. I don't know who to call. He says, I do. He says, we'll call MedLink. Now, MedLink is a phone tap that we can get in flight if there is any sort of a medical emergency with a passenger. Somebody passes out, somebody's having a heart attack. We get a radio patch. It goes to a doctor in, where is this doctor? Somewhere.
Hopefully not the Caribbean. Just kidding.
No, I think it's the Mayo Clinic or somewhere. Anyway, the doctor advises on what to do in flight. They tell you if you keep going. They tell you if you should land. They tell you how to treat it. So this gate agent gets them on the phone, and I explain the situation to them. And guess what? They're stumped. They don't know the answer.
There's a conversion you can do for like altitude versus water, like in water and air, but they probably don't have that on hand either.
I don't know, but the very idea that these medical experts didn't know was answer enough for me. And I said, we are not doing this flight. So I called Thor Thunderbolt back, and I told him, and he was so angry.
Now you have his full attention.
Oh, I sure did. I told you that it's safe, that we do these. These airplanes are designed for that. Are you refusing to fly? I said, yes, I am. I am refusing to put my crew at risk, because we've all been exposed to whatever this is. We go up and something happens. It's going to happen to every single one of us. Then you have an aircraft full of passengers and nobody that can possibly deal with it. So yeah, I'm refusing. Well, you're going to be in, blah, 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 blah. He's just going on, and he's angry. So you better file a formal report with MedLink, and I'm gonna call crew scheduling and have you removed from the flight. I said, good. Save me a phone call. Great. Well, so very next thing happens is MedLink calls back, and they said, yeah, we've looked into this. You guys can't fly for 12 hours. Great. Thank you. And they said, well, but stand by. We're looking into it further. We'll call you in a few. Well, then my AME, my guy that I get my medical, he calls back. He says, we can't fly for 24 hours. Oh, yep. Okay, cool. And then MedLink calls back again. They says, yeah, we woke up a scuba doctor in London, England to run this by him. And he was it's like 2:00 in the morning in England. They woke him up, and he was like thrilled. He's like, this is a very exciting thing. And yeah, he says 24 hours, we can't fly. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah. So Thor Thunderbolt, take that. Meanwhile, my Snap FO, who is a lot like you, he knows where to dig through all the manuals, and he finds the page that says that if we make any sort of decision that is in the interest of safety, no matter what it is, there will be no adverse repercussions from the company.
Yeah. So good for the FO.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, Thor Thunderbolt called him, and he started bullying him.
Threatening? Yeah, sorry.
Well, how do you feel? Well, I feel fine now, but I don't know. Well, if you feel fine, yeah, but if we fly, I don't know if I'll feel fine. My head might explode, Well, as long as you have no recourse to call in if you're, no, stop.
MedLink said you're toast.
100%. But he's bullying the kid. He wouldn't let it up, but he stood his ground. We didn't fly. And to their credit, MedLink, my gosh, they kept calling me back like every few hours. Are you feeling okay? Is everything okay? They call me the next day. They call me up. And it was such a pain in the ass to not have that backup that I needed, that certainly in the interest of safety. Because what can happen? Let's get into that pressurization thing, because what can happen?
Okay, so this is a big misconception I have when I try to explain a pressurized airplane to people. and this might blow your mind a little bit too, but when we climb up and pressurize, we are actually depressurizing.
We are.
We're depressurizing from sea level, just not to the extent of the actual altitude we're at. So try to wrap your brain around this at home. At standard atmospheric pressure on the ground, we talked about like 2992 or 3001 or whatever the pressure is on the ground. And as you climb up in altitude, the oxygen content of the air, say at 1,000 feet or 10,000 feet or 20,000 feet, becomes less and less and less, right? So we need to be able to breathe. So the airplane pressurizes, basically, it uses air from the engines, but it inflates the inside of the cabin and pressurizes the air not back to where you came from pressure, because that would explode the plane, but at as close as it can be to lower the altitude or the equivalent altitude of the cabin. So we say cabin altitude, we're actually talking about like how compressed are the particles in the air inside the plane's tube. So on the ground, you have like standard particle spread, if you will, of oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen. And then when you get in a plane and you climb up to 10,000 feet, all those particles are spread out. So you have less oxygen to go into your body per breath that you would get at 10. At 20, even less. Like not even like you get sick because you're being deprived of it. 30 and 40,000 feet, way less. Like not functional. You'll be unconscious. So we pressurize the cabin, but we can't pressurize it back to sea level where you came from. Maybe you came from sea level. Maybe you came from Denver. Here's a really cool thing. Denver's at like 5,000 feet, right?
Right.
When you leave Denver and climb up, the airplane does keep the pressure to where you left at.
Isn't that something?
And then you fly a few hours, and then you go land at like a sea level airport. You're going to land in New York. And then suddenly the airplane pressurizes beyond where you left and starts putting the pressure on your ears that you didn't feel on takeoff.
So are you suggesting that if you fly from Denver to a sea level like New York, you're going to feel more pressure in your ears as you land?
Correct.
You descend.
You never got depressurized. Remember, I said when you climb out, and you actually initially the airplane pressurizes on a sea level departure, Fort Lauderdale to New York. You leave Fort Lauderdale and you climb up. You're actually depressurizing, but you're depressurizing the air at less of a rate than the outside air pressure. So you could say you're pressurizing. I consider it depressurizing because your cabin altitude and air dilution is still getting worse.
So it sounds like flying to Denver might be a more comfortable physical experience than flying to, say, New York.
Yeah, if you climb out from sea level, the ears will pop outward, which is way more comfortable for your body than the pressurizing inward, which happens on descent. Everybody, I'm sure, on the way up, you chew on something and you hear like pop, pop, pop in your ears, and then it's okay. It's not painful. It's when you come back down and repressurize, the air gets pushed into your ears harder. So on the way up, the air leaves your ears from your ear canals without getting all doctory here.
Yeah. Well, now, can we put this into context of my minus 4,400 below sea level and then going up to fly at altitude? Would I have exploded?
No, you would not have exploded, but you would have been in a world. The content, the nitrogen bubbles in your blood. Do you scuba dive?
I have.
Yeah. So remember, like the ATM, 1 ATM, 2 ATM, atmospheres. How many atmospheres, 1 ATMs or 2 on the way down for your descent, your dive computer planning? I don't know. That's based on being surrounded by fluid, like water. I don't know how many ATMs, atmospheres you went down, because I don't know what the conversion rate is for air. That's a good question. And
I don't know either.
Maybe one of our really smart listeners at home can write us in, catsonguard@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about that. 4,500 feet below sea level. Could have been more, but it was all you could see.
And maybe Thor Thunderbolt can chime in with his
Speaking of the sinuses and the ears popping, I got one for you from the chief.
You got one? Oh, yay.
So a long time ago, 2008, when I was flying for a regional carrier, we had a flight attendant who, I try to treat all the flight attendants with respect, unless they do something to not earn it or to lose that respect.
Like calling maintenance in your stead?
Yeah, right. Well, I was just the FO, or I was his FO, or whatever you want to call it.
You know what I want to call it.
Flight attendant came up and can you change the pressurization so my ears don't pop? I said, no, I cannot.
There's not a button
my
for
job
that?
to adjust that.
There's not a popping button?
Well, there is. There is. You can turn the cabin altitude lower manually, and it'll pressurize to a higher PSI.
Okay.
So like if you're going a short route, you're not climbing up so high, you can set it to, I mean, every airplane has its max cabin pressure differential, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah. So mine is 10.69
That's pretty
PSID.
high. Holy cow.
That's why we keep a 4,000 foot cabin at 45 or
Yeah.
47,000 feet. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Um, but I think I can't remember, the Airbus was at 9.6 overflow or
Eight,
something like
eight,
that.
8.2.
8.2. Okay, yeah. So, um, well, she says somebody told me once they would do that for me, and it did, and it helped. And my sinuses, and the captain says, "Are your sinuses bad?" Well, yeah. That's why I'm asking you to change it.
She was flying sick.
Yes. And
Yeah.
he goes, "You should be calling in sick, not flying. You could do and he gave the whole logical spiel. You could do permanent damage to your eardrums and sinuses and blah, blah, blah. So we uh, we told her that we would not adjust the pressurization to suit her medical needs, and we were going to follow standard operating procedure and operate the pressurization system the way the aircraft was built to do. And whoever told her they could override it, I mean, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. And she had a whole fit. And I'm gonna call the chief pilot. Oh, okay, whatever. Like I'm gonna her boss, and then their boss would tell our boss. And so the captain looked at me and kind of winked, like out of her view. And then he went over. He says, "You know what? Just because in the interest of pushing on time and boarding," he winked at me and he walked out there and said, "Hey, I'll do that thing you want me to do. Let's do this." And she go, "Oh, cool, thank you." And like the door, they boarded, the door shut, and as soon as the cockpit door shut, she goes, "We're not changing a damn thing with that pressurization system." I was like, I knew it when you winked at me. I knew it.
Oh boy.
It's like SOP all the way.
And
That's it.
and and then when you landed, she was like, "Oh, I was so comfortable. Thank you so much. That was
It
so
was
much
like
better."
placebo effect, right?
Yes. Yes.
But she did write us up for the altercation in the jet bridge about refusing to. And I'm like, this is going to burn her
Yeah.
so bad because she's documenting that she's flying sick.
Well, that's right.
She's documenting that she wants us to operate outside of SOP. Like this is gonna, but again, when the chief pilot's phone number comes through your phone, you're like, right? Like every time you're scared, you're like, what did I do? Now, granted, like I just said, she burned herself with that
Right.
badly because
She
so
sure
many
did.
things, and you got to think about like the repercussions of your write up. Like, are you telling on yourself while you're trying to tell on somebody else?
That's right.
Like there was I'm gonna tell you about an anonymous story from an anonymous pilot flying an anonymous aircraft that once exceeded the maximum speed for the aircraft, like way over the red line. And that person told me, like, how do we write this up to maintenance? And I was like, that's a really good point because how do those pilots figure out, like, how do they go ahead and tell maintenance that the overspeed warning doesn't work?
Uh,
Because they flew past overspeed and there was no indication from the plane, like no warnings, no.
wait, are you suggesting that the overspeed warning malfunctioned, or somebody figured out how to disable it?
No, I'm sure. I don't think it was functioning for them.
Okay.
I think that it didn't work, and they normally nobody would ever find that out because we don't fly over overspeed ever. I mean, it was like that. If I remember, that airplane he was flying was like 0.92 or something, like really close to the speed of sound.
That must have been one of those extraordinarily rare instances of a pilot where they just didn't have their eyes glued to the airspeed indicator the entire flight.
No, no, yeah, I remember him telling me that they were like nosing down for a descent, but they never pulled the power back. They didn't have auto throttles, and so like in that instance, they left all the thrust, but also started downhill. And then they realized that they were over speed, but then they were like, "Oh, how we tell maintenance? Like, hey, maintenance." So we were like way past max speed for the aircraft, but by the way, the warning didn't go off. And like, so you were saying you violated a whole bunch of rules, and now
You know
you're telling.
what? I'll tell you what. I tell you how you do it. You just do it. You just fess up. You screwed up.
Well, that's a modern safety thing. That's not 20 years ago. That was not the case at most of
Well,
these.
but I
You would.
think today, and I will say, in the chief pilot's offices today, I think fess up in that instance, and you're going to be in a lot less trouble, if any at all. You might get sent back to a day of remedial training where they say, "Okay, get in the simulator now. Don't overspeed. You've passed." I think that has changed a lot from the old days. Because 20 years ago, maybe you would have been doing a carpet dance, but you fess up today, and you're like, okay, you were honest. Let's move on.
Yes, it's a corrective action, and how do we stop this from happening again for everyone else kind of culture, not a nail this guy to the wall. Oh, speaking of getting nailed to the wall, so my cargo company had really crappy pants for a year.
Oh
No,
no!
I don't know if it was a year. It was just like, oh, we have a new uniform supplier. Everyone needs to go get these, and we're navy blue. Navy blue is super easy, right?
Sure.
Everyone hates them. Week one, like I washed it 3 times trying to get the crinkliness out of this and the rigidity and the scratchy itchiness. People washing them, drying them, like not washing them, see if that'll help. I mean, it was gross. Well, all of us, this is what happens when you make a bad decision for comfort. People just find ways around it, right? Like we have a uniform pant, but like who's checking pants? Like can you tell the difference as long as they look the same? There are people pants checkers out there. Isn't that wild? There are pants checkers. Stop looking at my pants.
And you're flying cargo. Who needs to see what you're wearing? Who cares?
A chief pilot that needs to know that everyone is using the exact same product.
Do you think they just need to justify their own existence sometimes?
Hall monitors.
Yeah.
I tell you what. So we start. I see somebody went to Costco and laid the uniform pant next to the Costco pant, and it was like a dead ringer. Like you can't tell, but the material was softer. So somebody had
Worn
Costco
those pants to work.
Ooh, you're that guy.
I was that guy till they discontinued them.
Oh no.
Yeah. No, you know what I liked about them is they had a little super secret pocket inside the pocket
with a little
and
zipper.
So no, it was no zipper, but it was tight enough that you could stick something in there that, like my ID, when I pull out my driver's license to go through case, I don't want to have to pull it out of my wallet every time I go through security. So I would keep it in that little pocket and it wouldn't fall out. And it was glorious. But then
was that in the hip pocket or the back pocket?
Hip pocket.
Okay, so I like the hip pocket for my keys. I slide the key fob in there. That holds pretty well, but I also like some of these pants now have like a zipper in the back pocket. So there's a regular back pocket and a secondary back pocket.
Is the zipper visible though? Because then pilots can't walk around with zipper pockets.
Why are pilots walking around checking everyone else's butts?
Well, what else are we going to do?
Well, anyway, hey, so this uniform pants thing, chief pilot. I hear that some of you are wearing non-standard uniform pants. And again, you already made the arguments we just made. We're in cargo. It's 3 a.m. Nobody's looking. This company issues standard issued pants to match the standards of the uniform manual. I salute the officer or whatever that person wants me to do. Listen, we're flying cargo in this 1980s museum piece. Nobody's looking at us. Can we please just wear something comfortable? So we put up a legitimate fight. We're like, I've ripped 2 pairs of these in a year. They're not suitable for the work you're asking me to do. So we actually won this battle temporarily.
For you. Good job.
We got an email that it says, as long as the pants are this brand and color, or what was the wording? Indistinguishable from that brand and color.
That's what you want right there.
And we're like, yes. Well, then pilots, we're our own worst enemy. Guess what happened as soon as that got published? We had one guy wearing adventure pants. Do you know or a couple of them? You know what adventure pants are?
No, but I don't know the real pair.
I don't know what these are actually called.
I want some.
They're like breathable, like water resistant vinyl, maybe. Okay, they're the pants that zip into shorts at the knee.
Oh yeah, okay.
They're hiking pants, right? You can wear pants and you can unzip it and roll them up in your pocket. I call them adventure pants because you can turn pants into shorts and vice versa. As soon as that rule came out, suddenly people have adventure pants on. And like the ladies have like those like halfway jeans, halfway pants, the lady pilots, or what are those called? Like jeggings. They're like jean leggings, but they're navy blue.
I know what you mean.
We are gonna lose this so quickly. I went with a stretchy fabric navy blue to match, but it was like really light and fluffy, super nice in the summer. And then in the fall, I went back to like the uniform issue. But now there's like 12 or 15 different kinds of pants being worn by the fleet. And I think it lasted a year.
Yeah, you guys got to get on the same page
with
that.
We're our own worst enemy. Like no adventure pants, no jeggings.
Guys, we got this win. Let's not throw it out the window. you know?
But then the chief pilot got to stand up on his podium and be all kinds of excited to lock it back down. The pants rule is out. We're back to standard pants. It's like, oh, you gave it. Oh, you know how much happiness that guy had?
That's a real power move right there. When you can hold sway over your pilot's pants, you've really made it. That's top notch. But then there's sometimes like they're just I don't know. I got another Thor Thunderbolt story.
Thor Thunderbolt. I want to meet this guy someday.
You don't. I landed.
Is he on his fourth or his fifth wife?
So this is the one time I met him in person. We landed a plane, had a maintenance write up. We were getting off the plane. I left the logbook out on the pedestal for maintenance to see when they got there, because I'm done with it. I've written it down. It says what it is. I don't need to be there anymore. The next pilot will see it. The maintenance guy will see it. So I just leave it on the center console. I get off the airplane. And this is one of those rare occasions where I went into the crew room inside the airport because we had a little break, and my FO wanted to he wanted to go down there for some reason. And I don't know why, but I went with him. And when we get down there, you walk past Thor Thunderbolt's office. And Thor Thunderbolt sees us in the hall. He has no idea who we are. You know, we all look the same in our costumes, right? But he comes out of his office. Are you guys the ones that broke that airplane? I'm like, what?
Yes, we went out there with a hammer and slammed the airplane with a hammer.
Well, my cousin was riding on that plane and he saw the logbook when he was getting off the airplane. What did you do? Oh, you know what? This is why I don't go to crew rooms right here. So that, he just, why? Why did he have to do that? Why? Tell me why.
The cousin or the chief pilot?
The chief pilot. And also, how is that cousin in that? You need an ID badge to get into that crew room. What was he doing there?
Oh, you want to take the book and swack back at the chief pilot?
That only now occurs to me.
Unauthorized persons admitted to company property. Like,
yes.
There you go. Write him up right now.
Major security breach.
Oh my gosh. Unreal. Well, anyway, we could bitch about chief pilots for, I don't know, ever.
Yeah.
Maybe someday it'll get better.
I want to be happy. Though. Maybe I'll run for chief pilot next time there's an opening.
No. Don't. It's not worth your hair will be gray tomorrow. Or gone I completely.
Tell you, as old as I am pleased that my hair is still in the original color, and I think it's because I've avoided stress situations like being a chief pilot.
That's all it takes. Don't be management.
No. Good. Okay. I won't be management. I will continue podcasting at Cats on Guard. I am MC Howe.
Richard Million here.
We'll see you next time.